Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. We're on your digital terrestrial TV because we're free to air. You can get us on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. We are Joy News, independent, fearless and credible journalism. Coming up this afternoon on The Pulse, construction of the National Cathedral hangs in the balance as trustees reveal that the lack of adequate funds is weighing down the ability of workers to resume construction on President Akufo-Addo's flagship project. We'll get you details shortly. Also, members of the 46 Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, CTAG, proceed on annual leave en masse for a period of 28 days. The move is widely seen as a silent protest against poor conditions of service. This afternoon, we'll hear from the teacher trainees themselves who say that the move could affect final year students. We're getting you some updates, plus hear from leadership of the group here on The Pulse. And government's attempt to stabilize the city hits another snag as minority questions the finance ministry's decision over some alleged shortfall in the $750 million Afri-Exim facility being credited to the government of Ghana. We'll hear from Deputy Finance Minister who is denying the claims by the minority. It's all coming up here on The Pulse with me, Blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable, safe sanitation. We're streaming live this afternoon as well on YouTube and social media. It's at JoyNews on TV. Thanks for choosing us. And this afternoon, the construction of the National Cathedral hangs in the balance. That's because the Secretariat has run out of capital to finance the project. Executive Director of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah, says workers have been suspended and their ability to complete the project depends keenly on Ghanaians and their decision to support the project. He made the revelation when the Redeemed Christian Church of Ghana donated to the Secretariat earlier today.
As part of our fundraising and other initiatives, we can begin work again. But essentially, our ability to complete this work really is dependent on Ghanaian supporting us. And really, we are saying that, look, the money might be big in terms of volume, but if indeed we are 21 million Christians, and really 1 million can give us 100 cedis a month for a year, we can easily complete this in time. That's all, and then just all of you can be part of that 100 cedi club. Just 979 hash. 1 million Ghanaians. I really think it's possible. I refuse to believe that we can reach 1 million Ghanaians out of 21 million Christians to support this. Faith in the Ghanaian, and I'm confident that we will do this.
Also, that's the position that we're getting on this. In fact, we do know that this is not the first time the issues regarding the construction of the National Cathedral has faced some setbacks. Already, we know that some groups are making some propositions for government to consider another approach in executing the program. Advocates for Christ have been making some demands. In fact, they are asking government to pursue the project on a phased approach. Joining us now is Adam Senanu, who happens to be board chair of the group. Thank you, Mr. Senanu, for your time here on The Pulse. So you're saying that government should, at this moment, work, together with the trustees to try and find a phased timeline to completing the project. Why?
Yes, evidently the cost involved in doing this is monumental. It would make it more functional if they broke it up into phases and try to do complete beats. So if you, for example, had it broken into 3 or 4 phases, you can complete each phase and then raise money for the next phase. And then that would be much more manageable for the trustees, I believe. And raising the funds may not be as much. There's a need to look at the design and look at the input and to try and scale down in a way that allows this to be implemented as best as possible.
When you talk about a phased approach, what's the best method in achieving that? Because the president has made it clear that this is his flagship project. It goes to, suggest the fact that government will do all it can to support this project, in as much as we know that the Christian community would have to pay and to donate more to support the project as well.
Well, yes, that is the desire of the president, and yet on the ground, in a period where you have an economic crisis, you're going to the IMF for funding. Citizens are constrained because the rising costs, so giving has gone down. It will reflect in how much is being given in whichever port. The practicality of this is clearly not very huge. The risk that it is not going to take off, it's not going to be implemented the way it was anticipated. There will be costs and time overruns simply because you can't raise the funding. So the practical thing to do is to scale down on one hand. On the other hand, can also break it into phases and make sure each of those phases is manageable in terms of cost, so that the little resources that come in can be used to produce a result that then inspires confidence in people that, look, this thing can be completed.
Ideally, what's the realistic timeline for you as advocates for Christ as a group? Because the government initially created that impression that this was going to be an expedited project. Of course, a reason for which we're seeing prime areas and lands, as well as funds being given out by the government to ensure that the project runs smoothly. We've expended money demolishing properties belonging to judges in the country. All of these things have been done just to give us that sense that this is a project that will be completed any time soon. Looking at what's happening to the issue of funding and others that have faced the project, what's that realistic timeline you're working with as advocates for Christ?
If I were to propose, I don't think this can be a short term. And when we say short term, we mean within 1 year. It is more likely a medium term project where you're looking at 2 to 4 years. I think that a 3 to 4 year outlook on this is much more pragmatic. And given the resource constraints, I don't know what others would say, but from our perspective, I think that this should be a medium term, looking 3 to 4 years to raise funding. And yes, it may be a priority project of the president, but he's got to manage it in such a way, anticipating that it's not likely to be completed within his tenure. It's likely to go beyond that. Unless a miracle happens, and miracles do happen. But to be realistic, I would say you're looking at least 3 to 4 years of work to get anything practical on the ground.
There are issues about transparency as well, because the board in itself has not been able to tell the people of Ghana how much the exact cost of the project will be. It keeps changing by the day. The Finance Ministry also providing some different figures to the people of Ghana on the National Cathedral project. Is this the time, first of all, to reconcile the figures, so at least we know how much we're dealing with, and also get some sense of clarity on the funding for the project, because we're not too sure if this is going to be fully rolled out by government. Government says it's going to be a private initiative. We're heading to a point where we are hearing of some more funds being advanced from the state coffers. So some sort of stifling going on there. Don't you feel that this is the time for us to have some clarity from the board?
I think it's good to encourage the trustees to, as often as possible, provide details on funding and resources required. In fact, typically when you go to people to ask for money, you need to do some accountability. What's the total cost of the project? How much has been put in so far? What is the gap or the deficit that needs to be bridged? That kind of information in itself is crucial for anyone who wants to commit to understand what is the nature of the vacuum we want to fill, and does it seem like something that can be done within a certain time frame. So providing additional details, further and better particulars is important. And if the trustees are so minded, perhaps this is an opportunity to look at whether every 6 months or so, committing to updating the good people of this country. Of course, it has to be done annually. But if you're expecting many more people to be given, perhaps you need to do it in shorter time frames to keep everybody's confidence still high that this can be achieved and that the monies are all being accounted for, and therefore putting in my widow's mite can contribute to a positive result. So they have to be minded about it and intentional in providing more information so they can galvanize the support they need.
Of course, the unfortunate developments we're hearing of is beginning to lead some section of the public to that conclusion that a lot of consultation and paperwork did not go into the reasoning and strategies for the construction of the National Cathedral. Are you beginning to side with some of these convictions?
Well, I can't tell. I mean, maybe again it's the information gap. One is to know what went into the thinking of the design and the assumptions. And I mean, typically when you in project management we say what were the assumptions, what was the design, and you want to look at the conceptual thinking, and then you want to look at the competencies of the people who've been brought to bear on the project. At this point, one would need to understand what were the assumptions, because in coming up with a design, it's not only about the architectural thing, it's also about how would the funding be raised. And if the architect was told that don't worry about the resources, just come up with anything, that could then have a disconnect, because typically you should be able to tie the types of materials, the costings involved, with an understanding of the resources you can raise for it. So yes, at this stage, there's no clarity as to what were the assumptions before we came to the design, what was the concept, we've been told a bit about it, and then the competencies of the people brought to bear in order to get the resources, to get the design going, whether we have the best fit, only time will tell. At the moment, not looking too tight.
Given the trying economic times in which we find ourselves, the belief is that this should not be a priority. Let's entirely halt the project and resume work when we feel we're ready as a nation. How about that?
I may not entirely go down that road, because there are always crisis moments and you can't tell. I think what is much more important to me is that you need to be practical and hands-on, which means think through functionality and say, look, at this point, this is what can work. Because of the crisis, you may need to scale down completely and do something that is practical within the consideration of what is available. But to totally put it on hold may not be the way to go, because who knows when and how. So, yeah, if they are that committed, I would say, look, there are options. Scale down or phase it, or both, scale and phase it. And look at your design assumptions again and see whether there are things you can change that then bring the cost down, because the materials have changed, because the size of some things have been taken out. You may want to do something really radical at this point in terms of design and implementation.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here and see what then happens in the coming days on that. I'm grateful, Adam Senano, for your time here on The Pulse. Now, Roads and Highways Minister Kwesi Amoako-Attah says the country's precarious financial situation has made it difficult for his ministry to fix the many deplorable roads in the country. Taking his stand before Parliament's Government Assurances Committee, Kwesi Amoako-Attah lamented the failure of the controversial e-levy to rake in the expected revenue and argued that if Ghanaians had supported the tax measure, more roads would have been fixed across the country.
Government is on record, and questions were being asked to my predecessor minister. I was in Parliament, Honorable Fuseni, was faced with this challenge, and I know how questions were being thrown at him. So it's a challenge that all of us must come together and call upon our people to address. That is why we must be prepared as a country, to pay taxes and contribute to infrastructure, so that if we pay taxes like the e-levy, which was introduced, if it's supported, one of the key areas for the e-levy was the road sector. So if it had been, for instance, supported and we could have, it could have helped. You understand?
Well, when pressed by members of the committee if he had received all his allocations in the 2022 budget, the Roads and Highways Minister admitted that the Finance Ministry had not released all the amounts due his ministry. He was quick, however, to add that the issue of unreleased budgetary allocation is not peculiar to the government only.
Madam Chair, Honorable Member, it's like you have even answered the question yourself, because you say everybody knows, all ministers say the same thing, and on the floor of Parliament, and it's true. Your statement is true. I want to confirm your statement that we all know that, we do not get all the releases, as per the appropriation that we passed, and because we know the challenges, and it's not limited to any particular government, it's not limited to any particular ministry. So that as a singular problem facing our country has been there. That is why I was trying to say that the only thing, to circumvent this problem as a nation is that all of us and everybody, wherever everybody works, we must be prepared, to pay taxes. Nobody should hide, and that the tax net must be widened to cover everybody. We also complain that perhaps it's some of us who continue and to be overburdened, with taxes. We all know that so many people, hide outside the tax net. So the only thing to help our country, to help infrastructure development, is to improve on our revenue drive. So as a nation, that is where we should go. All of us, wherever everybody is, we must improve on our revenue drive.
Minister, I don't want you to be straying to areas where members will be forced to ask certain questions. Please answer your questions properly. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's get more on this. Parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante joins us with further details on this. Kweku, first of all, what answers have been given to other promises that were made on the floor?
So the minister had made very firm assurances that roads in Adenta, in Axim, and another in Sola, Tuna, Kalba will be fixed within a specific time frame. It appears that has not been met, and so we have to take the minister to make a further assurance that it was due to some challenges with financing, and that was why those routes had not been completed. You heard that the minister talk about the lack of revenue and why he thinks that the Ghanaian public must be willing to support government in terms of raising revenue and paying up for the e-levy, which has just accumulated about 7% of the target. And so most of the road projects that the minister had made assurances to members on the floor of the House have not been completed. But in particular, the one at Axim, the minister is now promising that by December, by the end of this year, that road would have been completed. Clearly, the members of the committee, particularly on the minority side, were not very excited about those responses because they thought if the minister had made those specific assurances on the floor of the House and had challenges, they should have reverted and informed MPs that these are the specific challenges. But to wait for the assurance committee to come in wasn't something that they were very happy about. The MPs had also been talking about the minister alleging that because the e-levy had been underperforming, government was struggling to raise revenue for these road constructions. They say that most of these promises for the roads to be constructed were made prior to the e-levy being contemplated at all. And so it is not something that they can blame it on. And that as we speak now, e-levy has been passed. They expect government to raise this revenue. But they told government that e-levy was not going to raise the amount they were expecting. But government did not listen and went ahead. And so if he had gone ahead and has now hit the wall, they will not be part of that blame game the minister wants to play. Blessed.
Going forward, do we know which other ministries will be expecting?
The Fisheries Minister, Hawa Kumsen, and the local government minister, both were expected to appear. They did not because of other commitments. Tomorrow, the committee is expecting that these ministers will appear before them so that they will answer specific questions regarding their ministries and the promises they had made.
Anyway, quick question to you. Thank you for giving us some updates on what's happening in Parliament. Back to the sector on education. Teachers in all 46 colleges of education will be leaving campus by Friday. The teachers argue that the decision to actually proceed on their annual leave this time round en masse forms part of their conditions of service, which allows them to withdraw services for close to 28 days. Let's bring you some excerpts of the harmonized conditions of service for colleges of education. There you have it on your screens right now, but then we'll bring that to you later on. Meanwhile, the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana is also raising some concerns about issues relating to that decision by CTAG members to proceed on strike. So it's not a strike, but it's a decision to proceed on leave en masse. And of course, the reaction we're getting from the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana is that this will partly affect them. Part of the reasons they're raising at point one there is the fact that continuing students with precision on final and third-year trainees who have actually stayed home for over 6 months, of course, will be affected based on issues relating to the continuous changes of the academic calendar. And of course, they will be reporting to campus for the second session of their semester on the 4th of September. However, the teachers are now taking a decision to withdraw their services by Friday. If that happens, it would therefore mean that the final year students will be affected as a result of that decision by CTAG to have all of its members in all 46 colleges of education proceed on leave en masse. And that's why CTAG is raising some concerns about that development on campus. They want the teachers to actually reverse that decision and to consider the final year students. Joining me in studio now is Jonathan Junu, President of the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana, joining us in studio now. Thank you for your time, Jonathan. So you say that, first of all, there are some changes in the academic calendar. So help us understand those who are on campus now and those who will be coming in by the 4th of September.
So right now we have level 100s and then level 200s on campus. So when they are off, level 400s and then 300s setting.
So what you mean to say is that you are the final year students.
Yes, the level 400s.
And you are going back to campus on which date particularly?
4th September.
Okay, so if all the teachers leave campus by Friday as we're learning of, then it will mean that what exactly would happen to your?
It means we'll go to campus and there will be no teacher there to teach us. And then in October, we are starting our exams and we are ending on October 28th, which means that we will just be on campus and the teachers will come back from the leave and push us into the examination hall, and that will not be okay for us.
The teachers, and as I was pointing out, the teachers have clearly stated that this is part of their conditions of service. So basically, they're entitled to this 28 days that they're taking off, and they're deciding to take that off at this point in time in the year because within their conditions of service, they can take it anytime they want. At least they've provided services by teaching some of your colleagues who are already on campus. So if they leave on Friday, as workers, they're entitled to some rest, so they could come back after a month.
I must say this, that as students, we are not against our tutors going on leave. It's a fact that they've taught for one academic year without rest. We appreciate the fact. But the very time they are asking for the leave is going to affect the student, especially the final year student. And you know how this whole thing started? It started from the strike. We are going on strike because government has refused to meet some of our demands. So we are going on strike. Now, they had a meeting yesterday, and they were told to come back on the 12th of September. And then today, they said they are going on leave for 28 days. So you can look at where the whole thing is coming from. So I think this can be solved. Government should find means to call the teachers and sit down with them for the sake of the final year students. If not, we will graduate and the grades will not be fine.
How did we get here in the first place? By having a mix-up in the academic calendar?
You know, it all started with the introduction of the B.Ed program. And the program was introduced for 4 years. Initially, the diploma program takes 3 batches, and then now 4 batches, which means that infrastructure is in deficit. So some students would have to stay home for others to be on campus. This is what led us to some students being on campus and then some being in the house.
So those on campus now, they are part of the degree program?
Yes.
And for the final year students?
They are part of so the first years and second years are part of the degree students. We started it. With the final year students, we started it. So now we have 4 batches now.
Well, a lot of people back home would want to understand what's happening on campus. So if you're saying that the final year students are coming back to campus right now and you have all of your teachers leaving, how come that the final exams has been slated for October, knowing so well that around this time of the year you're supposed to proceed on some sort of vacation?
You know, the calendar was prepared. It has been prepared already.
Right.
Initially, the teachers don't teach all year round without going on break. There is what we call a vacation. But because of the pressure, there is nothing like a vacation at this time around. They are always engaging the student because this batch will leave, the next one will come like that. So you see that for a number of period, they've not had rest. That must be...
Okay, so that's the argument now.
Yes.
So with the way the calendar has been crafted, it means teachers would have to be on campus all year round.
Yes.
That's the problem being created.
Yes.
There are those who suggest that the decision that teachers are taking now is simply linked to some of the concerns they have regarding their conditions of service.
Yes, to some extent we agree with that.
You believe it's connected to this?
Yes.
And that's why you've further stated some positions on resolving their concerns?
Yes, that is why we are saying that government should call the teachers and sit down with them. I was asking myself when I was coming here that if government had given them what they want, would they have still said they are going on leave? Of course, if should they even agree to go on leave, they will consider the student, especially the final year student, because at least something has been given to them, their demands have been met some way. But now that they have been pushed to come for the meeting, some other time say, okay, fine, let's go on leave. You see it.
Have you seen this kind of thing before where almost, and this, in fact, they are all leaving, they are all proceeding on leave, but they are not calling this a withdrawal of their service. They're saying this is in line with the law.
That is the problem. Why should all the teachers leave at once? Just like one day we wake up, we come to multimedia, everybody is on leave. How would the station run? You see, so it all boils down to the fact that somebody must meet the teachers and talk to them. Somebody must give them what they need. And government has that power. Government should invite them. The Ministry of Education should meet them. And then we are saying that should it happen that the teachers will still embark on this leave and students will go to campus, sit for the 28 days without teachers coming to teach, then room should be made ready. When they come back, they must find time and teach the students for the number of days I have lost.
Okay, so you don't want the exams to be organized in October. You want that to be readjusted?
Let me also put this on the record.
Okay.
The system has left all of us frustrated. Students want to complete as early as possible and go. But we cannot say because we want to complete and leave, the teachers will sit at home for 28 days. They will come and then say, go and write exam without they teaching us. That will not be acceptable.
So what you would not accept is the fact that you just proceed and write your exams.
Yes.
But then how many are you in number in terms of the final year population? And how many people will be affected out of this basic decision that we're seeing, that some workers are saying we're proceeding on leave? It shouldn't be a big deal, should it?
Like I said earlier, we are not against the teachers going on leave. I've made it clear that it is a fact that they've taught for a number of periods without having any rest. So if they are going on leave, it's acceptable. But the timing is very wrong. And why are they even calling for the leave as at this time? And I was saying that this whole thing started with a strike action. And now they've been asked to come back for a meeting. And they say, okay, fine. What we needed, you are not ready to give it to us. And we have been teaching for this number of time without rest. Okay, let's go and rest. This is the whole thing. It's very simple.
So you are caught up in that
yes,
crossfire.
And the students who keep facing this frustration, already we are all suffering in one way or the other. We are all disabled, but the system is not helping us in one way or the other. And then this kind of frustration shouldn't be added for the students. It's too much.
In all of this, what are you planning to do as the Teacher Trainees Association
yes,
in terms of probably engaging? And have you made any attempts to reach out to the authorities?
You know, the release came from CTAC today. So as it stands, we are making preparations to make all stakeholders that are concerned as far as this issue is concerned, the leadership of Brinkhoff, CTAC, and the ministry, GTEC, so that we sit down and find a possible solution for this. And I must also say that look, it's high time government find long-lasting solution to these issues. Today's strike, tomorrow's strike. I think the earlier we find a long-lasting solution to it, the better. Because if you read the release from CTAC, they mentioned it that they are promised today, then the time reaches, nothing is given to them. So, and then we, the students, we are suffering. You see it. It's very bad. Leadership shouldn't be joking with our education, knowing very well that we are going out there to teach the future generation who are coming to be lay the foundation of this country. It's very bad.
Was it the case that you were on vacation? I mean, between the period that we're having some changes with, where exactly were the final year students? The argument is you could have taken advantage of the break that you had as a group, just to do some sort of training, or just prepare and do some learning before the exams itself. Was that possible, at least for some students?
Of course, when we are on break, there are people who always have the chance to learn on their own. And there are people who only learn when they come to campus. But we can't say you were given break and then you should have used the period to learn. If you refuse to learn, that one, no, we can't put that, we can't equate that here.
So what do you intend to do now? Because CTAG has made up their mind. Have you appealed to the group? Have you tried to mediate, just to call them to hold on for this 28-day period?
Like I said earlier, they just brought their communique. So from here, we will be writing to them to meet them, not only CTAG, Brinkhoff, GTEC, and the ministry.
But really, what could Brinkhoff do about this, the principals themselves, because they run the institution? Is it possible to find out an alternative to your concerns, where, of course, membership of CTAG could go on strike and then provisions be made for some tuition to be carried out on campus?
You know, if CTAG is going on strike, there is no any other group that can come in to teach us. But we want to engage Brinkhoff because they are stakeholders as far as teaching and learning on the various campuses is concerned. They are stakeholders. So in the midst of all this, they must be at the center of it so that we find solution together.
Jonathan, I'll leave you to just send that appeal to government as you want to do.
Thank you very much. So as Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana and students, and especially the final year students, we are using this medium to appeal to government and its agencies to, as a matter of fact, meet CTAC and then iron out their differences, the demands that they are bringing on board, give them what they want so that they will return to the classroom. It's because of this, that is why they would have to go on this. I know the CTAC membership are not happy that they are taking this decision, but they would have to take it because they are also cornered. So we are appealing to government to meet CTAC and then find a better solution to this problem. From now to 1st September, I think it's long enough to find solutions to the problem.
Anyway, we'll be on the lookout to see what the fallout should be on the 4th of September when the final year students return to campus. Jonathan Jono is president of the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana. Of course, there are some more issues happening in the Greek sector as well, as the Kwabre Kenyasi police in the Ashanti region have arrested a Nigerian national in possession of some bags of fertilizers suspected to be a part of government-subsidized fertilizer for farmers. Shaibu Adamu was actually arrested with 556 bags of the fertilizers at Ebrim Jamasi near Kenyasi, but was granted bail on the same day of his arrest on Friday. Ohiming Tewia of our security desk has more in the following report.
Acting on intelligence, a team of police officers from the Kenyasi District Police Command swooped on this particular shop where at least 500 bags of subsidized government fertilizer meant for cocoa farmers. A man identified as a Nigerian national has been arrested and assisting police in investigations. According to police sources, Shaibu claimed to have taken delivery of the fertilizer from an unnamed man in exchange for lumber the man had failed to pay for. He has since declined to offer police information on the name and contact details of the said man after several rounds of interrogation. The fertilizers in 50 kg sizes Ghana Cocoa Board inscriptions embossed on the sacks. It was seized from a warehouse at Ebrim Jamasi on the Kenyasi Amuom Achiasi Road after police intelligence. The Ashanti Regional Police Criminal Investigations Department has taken over investigations whilst police launch a manhunt for suspected accomplices. Meanwhile, Cocoa Board has confirmed fertilizers were meant for distribution to a group of farmers. From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Ohiming Tewia reporting.
Cocoa Board is beginning to get worried about some of these trends. Joining us now is Deputy Director and Public Affairs at the Cocoa Board, Fifi Bafo. Thank you for your time. This is coming at a time when, of course, there are some allegations that, of course, terrorists need the fertilizers to manufacture some explosives. So it's got to do with national security as well. How worried is Cocoa Board about some of these developments that we're learning of?
Well, our worry go beyond the security concerns. Obviously, that's a matter for all of us to be worried about. But beyond that, these are fertilizers meant for cocoa farmers. And it's for the farmers to apply them on their farms so we ensure that we are able to improve productivity, increase the revenue of the cocoa farmers. So if it ends up in the wrong hands, obviously, this is something that we will not be pleased about. You recall that last week there was a statement that was issued from Cocoa Board about some arrests that have been made. So it's an indication that it's not just a one-off thing, but it's happening in some parts of the country. But the arrest is also pointing to the fact that people who are engaged in this are not just getting away with it. If you do, or if you are involved in, there's a high likelihood that you will be arrested and then the law will deal with you. But of course, like you said, it's a concern to us as a board.
Some measures you're considering to further strengthen the check measures?
Well, let me say that the arrangement put in place to get these fertilizers to cocoa farmers was something that we crafted about 3 years ago, following series of measures that we've used in the past to get fertilizers to the farmers. So this is something we actually transport directly to cocoa farmers in their localities. These farmers have formed their own cooperatives. They know themselves. They know who are the members of these cooperatives. And it's actually delivered to them in their locality. So the expectation is that if farmers put together about 80 of them, they have indicated the quantity of fertilizers they will need for their operations, and the fertilizer is distributed to them. Obviously, you expect that they will apply it and they will not end up in the hands of persons such as this. By realizing that In some instances, the leaders of these groups take delivery of the fertilizers and then they end up in the wrong hands. Persons who are supposed to take delivery now will go beyond just the leadership or the executive in order to ensure that it doesn't just end up in an opportunistic person who will take advantage of it and then will lose it. But of course, there are other measures which, unfortunately, because of the people who seek to take advantage of the arrangement, will not be able to share it on television. But of course, we are putting in place to ensure that the fertilizers end up with the farmers, but not persons who are just seeking to take advantage of the system.
Digitalization comes into sharp focus. And the belief by some experts is that, well, why not drive that change through Cocoa Board and incorporate much more technological advancement so we check graft in the system?
Indeed, digitalization is the way to go. And the expectation is that by the beginning of our next cocoa season, the cocoa management system, which we've been working on, will come full on stream. The cocoa management system is a system whereby we take the database of all cocoa farmers in the country. It is not just information about the farmer, but of course, details of their farms with the polygon maps and all that put together. So what we'll do is that we'll have centers where these farmers, with your card, the cocoa card which is issued to you, you go and you take delivery. So it will not come in a truckload where, for example, it is given to the cooperative, but to you as a farmer with your card, and then you go and take delivery of it. We believe that that is the way to go. And the cocoa management system, the registration is ongoing. We are just left with the last region, which is Western North, and the expectation is that by the end of this year, we would have compiled all the details, and then we can roll the system out fully.
And Fifi, what's more intriguing about the story is that there's a foreign national allegedly involved in the act. It brings to mind the issue about smuggling. Are you taking some practical measures to try and protect that area as well? Because some persons may be moving the fertilizers into our neighboring countries.
Well, the challenge we've had in the past is to see these fertilizers moving out of our country. So all the arrangement and all the steps we've taken were generally meant at ensuring that the fertilizers do not find their way to such persons. Indeed, the first 2 years of implementation of these arrangements has been very positive, and the result is one we are proud of. Unfortunately, this is coming in at the third year of operation. It's an indication that maybe they've seen how the system has been running, and then they've devised means of outwitting us. That is the more reason why we are also looking at different means of also ensuring that we get the system to operate effectively, and then we do not have the situation whereby they take advantage of the system. In the hands of foreigners, it's a threat because in a situation whereby it finds itself within the country, the high likelihood that other farmers may be benefiting. But it's going outside the country is indeed a big worry, and our team are working on it together with the support of the security agencies to get this thing sorted out.
The issue about stakeholder consultation and, in fact, collaboration, and not just within, but from without, leads on the market include Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. I recall the last time we were having a conversation, you talked about that effective collaboration that's going on between the Ivorian counterparts just to try and secure a better deal on the market. But how about trying to work out a deal or a negotiation that will also target smuggling? Are these factors being considered as well?
Indeed, the collaboration between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire goes beyond just the price. The Cote d'Ivoire-Ghana initiative that was put together between the president of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and his Ivorian counterparts. The pillars were, yes, the economic was one. Of course, the collaboration had to do with also research and the means of also ensuring that you do not find cocoa moving in between the borders of our countries. Issues about fertilizer was not initially the major concern, but of course, the system put in place has the mandate or the capacity, if I should say, to be able to deal with that, and that is one worthy of exploring. However, it goes beyond just Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, because in time past where we used to experience this challenge, as far as Cameroon, we experienced instances where fertilizers meant for cocoa farmers traveled all the way there. So a means of checking it up at our borders is one we need to step up. Obviously, it's a challenge, and then Cocoa Board will deal with that.
I don't intend to talk about this, but it will definitely come up because when we talk about the economy, cocoa is our main point of foreign exchange. There's been a lot of sharp focus on your organization to try and rake in more revenue, at least to help us stabilize the cedi. You have any comments on that?
Well, I do not have a permission to say, except to say that, yes, our production last year wasn't the best. This year, the weather has been very good compared to what we experienced last year. So we are quite optimistic. And if our output is good, definitely has a huge impact on the revenue of the country.
Anyway, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you so much for your time. That's Fifi Buffo joining us here on The Pulse. You're still with us on the JoyNews channel. We'll be back shortly. Please stay. And welcome back to The Pulse. The government has downplayed claims that there is a bizarre shortfall in the Afri-Exim facility of $750 million US dollars credited to the government of Ghana. Ranking member on the Finance Committee, Dr. Kisil Toforsen, in a post on social media, called on government to account for some shortfall amounting to some $37 million. As he stressed that the Parliament of Ghana never approved an upfront fee to be paid as part of the facility, as being suggested by government and its officials. Deputy Finance Minister Dr. John Kuma as well has taken to social media to explain reasons accounting for these variations in the figures from Afri-Exim, and it's time till the response to Honorable Atoforsen's latest statement on the 750 million Afri-Exim money. Of course, he starts off by talking about the fact that the government of Ghana has received fully the amount of 750 million US dollars today, Monday, 29th of August, 2022, from Afri-Exim, as was approved by Parliament. Government also, as part of the transaction, has created an escrow account for debt service for the facility. This arrangement is not new, as the Ministry of Finance have from time to time created specialized escrow accounts for specific purposes. In this particular transaction, an amount of some 37 million US dollars from the facility has been set aside for debt service obligations. All the documents relating to this arrangement were supplied to and was approved by the Parliament of Ghana. Government is grateful to Afri-Exim and actually assures all Ghanaians that the funds will be applied specially to the specific infrastructural projects that were approved by the government of Ghana through the Parliament. Of course, this facility, as we understand, has hit the accounts of the Bank of Ghana, and it's beginning to have some effects on the stabilization of the cedi. Let's bring in Isaac Kofi, who's with our research desk, that's data analysis on all of these figures. So, Kofi, started off for us. Where are we trading in terms of the Forex? Ghana to the US dollar.
Hi, Blessed. So currently we have $1 selling around on the average 9 cedis, 96 pesos. And so we saw the dollar or the cedi to the dollar leaving the 10 cedi zone somewhere Sunday evening, and then by Monday, $1 was to some 9 cedis, 98 pesos. And today we are seeing $1 is to 9 cedis, 96 pesos. So we've seen some improvement in terms of appreciation of the Ghanaian cedi over the past few days. In the past 3 or 4 days, we've seen the Ghanaian cedi actually appreciating against the dollar and also the pound sterling. But when you look at the euro, it's still on the ascendance in terms of the depreciation rate.
Factors accounting for this, do we attribute it to the Afri-Exim?
It could be one of the factors, but bear in mind that we saw, Bank of Ghana raising the policy rates by 300 basis points from 19% to 22%. So if you look at the data, anytime that government decides to raise the policy rates above the prevailing rates, we actually see the cedi appreciating. But if you look at the period of appreciation, it's not really that long for it to offset the kind of loss again in the previous month. But it could be one of the factors that you can actually attribute it to. And also bear in mind that government is not only expecting this 750 million, we've actually received it, but it's also expecting some 1.5 billion from the cocoa syndicated loan, which will come to also help in boosting our foreign reserve, which is currently somewhere around slightly above $7 billion. So if you look at our accounts currently as a nation, we are hovering somewhere around 3 months of import cover. And so we need this foreign reserves coming in to actually help us boost our import cover, and then also to help us bring in pharmaceuticals, bring in petroleum products and other imports.
Okay, help us understand this. What's the outlook like? I mean, at least not for this month, because the effects may be felt in the coming months. Initially, you were raising that fear that we could cross the 1:13 mark, or 14 at least. What's it looking like now?
So I'm looking at the rate of appreciation, and if you compare it to the rate of depreciation, there is a vast difference between the appreciation rate and then the depreciation rate. So we are appreciating by some, close to 0.8%, and we depreciated overnight by 1%. So you can see the kind of difference. So since the beginning of the year, cumulatively, the cedi has lost more than 35% of its value to the dollar. And so for us to appreciate by just some 0.8%, it's not enough for it to offset the kind of loss we've actually had this year. But going forward, if you look at the data, we've been at this point before. Somewhere in June, we saw the cedi appreciating against the dollar for some 3, 4, 5, 6 days, and then we saw it, depreciating again. So we are still looking ahead. But if you look at the data, it's currently looking good for the country. We are just praying and hoping that the 750 million we've received so far will not be, absorbed quickly from the system by the kind of demand pressure we have on the dollar currently.
That's another side we need to be paying attention to. But I don't intend to dwell on the technicalities. But with this shortfall that we're hearing of, with some 37 million in terms of the actual that has hit the accounts, and the upfront facilities we're doing through the escrow accounts, how badly do we need that $37 million? And what would it have changed anyway?
Well, at this point, if you look at our books, every dollar is important. You can't afford to lose any dollar in the current Ghanaian economy because we need it. If you look at our reserves, for instance, I keep referring to that. We started with somewhere 9.9 billion, which was almost close to $10 billion. And for us to depreciate, or for us to lose that kind of reserve, which would afford us 4 months of import cover, 5 months of import cover, to now 3, and some experts are even saying that it has dwindled to some 2 months or just 1.5 months. It shows you that every dollar in the economy is actually very important. And government would have to make sure that the kind of money they are pouring in the system is not being absorbed by the black market.
Okay, let's leave it here for now. Dr. Michael Adongo is an economist, joins us via Zoom now. Doc, if you're with us, the issue about what's happening to the cedi now, at least we know of the $750 million dropping into our accounts. We'll try and re-establish the lines with Dr. Michael Adongo, of course, who will be joining us to help us appreciate all of this. In today's Living Standard series as well, we do know that some fish sellers and cold store dealers fear that the price of your meat and fish will continue to soar unless the cedi is stabilized. At the Kaneshie fish market, the Franco Park cold store, traders say that their businesses are struggling to survive. And joining us now is Dr. Michael Adongo, development economist, of course, helping us to understand all of this. The $750 million has been confirmed. Of course, government explaining reasons why we're having a slight variation in the figures, but at least that's a significant amount. What's going to be the impact, knowing that the cedi is responding positively, at least in the last few hours?
Yes, thank you for having me. I think the first response and movements in the exchange market we are seeing is largely due to speculative reasons. So those who were demanding foreign currency in anticipation that we're going to run short and will not be able to support demands for dollar in the markets are reconsidering their choices, because this 750 million is in there and could give us some cushion, and the central bank can meet the short-term demands of our foreign exchange. That said, it's still a flash in the pan. If we look at these important petroleum products alone, they require about 350 million a month. So we are looking at about just 2 months of what they require in this 750 million. So
yeah, but what many do not understand is that quick response. At least we have moved below the 10 cedi threshold. In terms of the cedi to the dollar. So many would say it's beginning to work favorably. That's the initial reaction. Dr. Adongo, if you're with us, I was just talking about the initial reaction and what we're seeing as part of what's happening to the cedi and the dollar. We've moved actually below the 10 cedi threshold. So the belief is once we're beginning to, move downwards, that will be the trend going forward. Dr. Adongo, are you with me? I was just asking about the trend we're witnessing. Yes, you can make the point, sir. I'm with you. And kindly...
Yes, I'm saying what we are seeing immediately is speculative response. Those who demanded more dollars because they expect the cedi to fall further are now thinking that the central bank is able to supply our short-term currency demand. So they are easing off the markets, and the cedi is rebounding. You also need to understand that much of the recent demands for foreign currency is as a result of many people thinking that the cedi has lost one of its fundamental functions, that is serving as a store of value, which was largely true. So people were demanding the dollar because they wanted to preserve the value of their currency or whatever they had, and they didn't see the cedi as the reliable store of that value. So they decided to change into the US dollar. So what you are seeing now is that if government is able to supply what is demanded in the market, largely people would stop demanding the dollar, and the cedi is rebounding temporarily just because of those ones.
So for you, after this month, we may see a reversal to what we're experiencing, where those, of course, the fast depreciating rate of the cedi. Is that your argument? We seem to be having another challenge connecting to Dr. Michael Adongo. I just wanted to find out from him earlier about what would happen once we move out of this temporary zone he's talking about, but unfortunately we're unable to connect to him at this moment. We'll definitely try and work that out. Dr. Adongo is back with us. Doc, I was just asking about your projections because you were talking about the fact that this will just be a flash in the pan. Beyond the month of, say, September, are we likely to reverse to the trends that we're witnessing before this, downward turn of the dollar rate?
It depends on the perception that feeds into the market. If people think that this Exim loan would immediately be followed by the IMF agreement, and then we being able to attract some foreign liquidity, you expect the cedi to fall further just because of the speculative demand that's eating off. So it largely depends on how quickly we are able to secure a deal with the IMF. We'll have that short-term reprieve and the cedi rebounding to a large extent. So I am very optimistic that this is not going to be a very short-term rebound. looking at what is happening in the arena, I expect the city to hold on at least for the next 2-3 months.
And we're getting indications that the approval for the IMF program may happen this year, the end of the year. But hopefully the funds will begin to trickle in from the first quarter of next year. And does that give you hope that at least once we are able to use the syndicated loan and the Afri-Exim facility, we could manage the situation right through to the end of the year and then expect some bailout from the IMF early next year?
Yes, the immediate worry is inflation. And if we are to deal with the inflation driven largely by a high cost of crude, and we cool off that, yes, we are likely going to see some rebound. But I'm very worried that we are not taking advantage of the hardship Ghanaians are going through. We all talk about the fact that we do not like the Gogglesberg economy. We want to restructure the economy and look inward for solutions to our problems. And what we are doing now currently is just subsidizing imports. We have artificially kept the CD very strong. And that largely meant that we were subsidizing the imports.
Too bad. Dr. Adongo will definitely reconnect sometime, but for now, we're grateful for your time. The Council of Elders of the National Democratic Congress in the northern region has described last Tuesday's attack on the party's regional office as criminal and has called on the police service to treat the attack as a crime. The elders said the regional secretariat of the party was built out of individual contributions. Therefore, for any group of persons to be claiming to be the party faithfuls to take such a decision to unleash terror on the office is difficult to comprehend.
Addressing the media in Tamale over the recent violent attack on the party's regional secretariat, council member Alhaji Umar Yusuf said the behavior exhibited by the youth is considered anti-party and highly condemnable.
The attention of the Council of Elders has been drawn to the dastardly attack on the Northern Regional Secretariat of the NDC in August 2022 by an unknown youth group within the metropolis. The Council of Elders considers this attack criminal and has therefore called on the law enforcement agencies to treat it as such. It is a considered conviction and belief of the Council of Elders that the regional party office that was attacked was built out of the contributions of committed and loyal members of the party as far back as 1999 and continuously being furnished and equipped by dedicated members of the party over the years. So, for any group of persons claiming to be party faithfuls to take such a decision to unleash terror on the office in this manner is difficult to comprehend. As a result, such behavior is considered anti-party and highly condemnable.
He called on the National Executive Committee to set up a committee to investigate the attacks and enable the appropriate sanctions of the party be triggered.
The Regional Council of Elders is therefore calling on the National Executive Committee to set up a committee to investigate the said attack and enable the appropriate structures of the party to trigger Article 48, that is party discipline, of the party constitution to deal with the situation. The Council of Elders states and re-emphasizes that anybody found culpable in this heinous attack should not be shielded, and the lawful processes to deal with such persons or group of persons should proceed. The council urges that whoever in the party in the region is dissatisfied with any decision taken at any level should use the complaints and appeals provisions, that is Article 49 of the party constitution, to seek redress rather than resort to needless violence that has a tendency to either bring the name of the party into disrepute or making the party look unattractive to the voting public.
Former Regional Secretary Khalid Rahuf said the issue of first and second vice chairmanship position would be addressed when the party goes to conference.
To go to national conference. The party is yet to go to national conference, and the issue of amendments, yes, we've taken note of it. But I have been reliably informed that this aspect of either being a vice chairman or second vice chairman will be taken care of when we go to national conference.
And some road users are unhappy that overaged and rickety vehicles are still allowed to use the roads despite the extreme risk they expose passengers and other road commuters to. The passengers who spoke to JoyNews in a random interview questioning why state institutions mandated to ensure public safety appear to be reneging on their responsibilities. They are therefore calling on the mandated authorities to enforce the relevant laws in getting vehicles that are not roadworthy out of the roads.
First thing to be done has to be that. I mean, let's say you have a car. The condition of the car, normally the car shouldn't be on the road, but at the end of the day, man has to eat. So I'm always that, in as much as we are all trying to avoid these things, that is someone else's ends meet. So you can't just say we should avoid them. Normally, my take has to be, if the car gets to a certain stage, I mean, it shouldn't be used for long journeys and all that. For instance, if a car is supposed to go to Takwa and then the condition has deteriorated a bit, you can change the route, maybe Accra to Wee, but I mean, it's manageable.
I think that those who grant them permission must be questioned, because knowing very well that the car is no good for the road, it can cause accident, it can destroy lives. Why do you have to give them permission in the first place? So I don't blame the drivers. I blame those who give them permission, the roadworthy and the insurance companies, because they'll bring the car. You see it. You see sometimes you even have to open the bonnet. So knowing very well that the car is no good for the road, you don't permit them to use it in the first place.
What can we do aside that? What can authorities do to get these buses off the road?
The authority must do what is right for the sake of lives, to avoid all those cars. Yes, because without them, other ones are there who can do the same work. So if they are not on the road, you forcibly join the red car.
Okay, in such vehicles on the road, because it poses even somebody who isn't like sometimes you can be on the road and just somebody's fault and cause lives and all that. So I think honestly for me, before I even sat in this car, I had to look at the car to see if it was good before sitting in the car. So of course all these things should be considered, especially when giving the roadworthy stickers and all that, because honestly, most of these accidents are not caused by just overspeeding and all that. All these imbalances in the cars and how good the car is and the faults, check. All these things should be checked. That's it.
With the accident, sometimes it's some of the drivers, they are sometimes, some of them they rush, overtaking. They are doing overtaking on the road. And that one, if the government can can try that, it will be something like okay for the whole country, because the accident sometimes is too much. Yes.
I think for the roadworthiness of the vehicle, we have an institution that takes care of that. That is the DVLA. But what they do is, most of the vehicles, they don't go for the checks. They just go and then get the stickers and place them in the screens of the vehicles to tell the police on the road that the car is roadworthy. But actually, most of them are not, because they don't go for the checks. So it's for DVLA to ensure that before they issue out the roadworthy sticker, the vehicle has come for serious checks. But the way they are doing it now, that's why
most of the cars are on the roads and they are not roadworthy. As a passenger, if I'm coming, probably I'm in a hurry or something, I will not have time to even check the kind of car that I'm boarding. We don't do that because we believe in the systems. We believe our systems are working. Somebody has been there to take charge of that responsibility. So if the institution is working very well, it is not for the passenger to go and then find out how would he even.
Well, so let's stay on the road because the deplorable nature of the Wenchi Ofuma network has been a significant source of worry to many residents of the Bono regional town of Wenchi, since several appeals to get it fixed have landed on deaf ears. Nesta Kafui Ejomo has been interacting with some residents along the 59-kilometer stretch and sent in the following report.
The wobbly Wenchi Ofuma road challenge militating against the health and economic lives for the people along the roadsides. Residents here say the incessant dust emanating from the road, particularly during the dry season, has regularly caused respiratory tract infection for family members.
All this so that we, the government workers and others who are not farmers, can also get the food to buy and eat. But because of the bad of the road, no car is willing to go there and convey the food and bring it to town so that we buy. And at times too, we will hear accidents. They will go and collect the food stuff and be bringing it to town, and you hear accidents occur on the road, and some of them may die, and some of them may be having serious injury, and others too be having fractures on their legs. So I'm pleading with the government and the Minister of Roads and Transport that he should also think that he will come and construct the road for us. If you come to Wenchi town here too, we have a lot of quarry companies here, like Bretas Quarry Company, Tesek, JA Quarry, and many more. But we have bad nature of roads.
All the food that we are getting here is from the villages, and that is the village way. This road is lead to the village because here, this town here, we don't farm, we don't do anything, and where the car or the lorry will pass through this way to bring the food to us. The road is not good, and every time when it is time for voting, they will come and say, oh, we will do. After voting, we will not see them again. Why is it that way? We didn't understand it. So we are pleading, begging the government they should come and do it better for us. Otherwise, we don't know whether we are not part of Ghana or what.
JoyNews has learned that the SWL John Mahama administration for the first time awarded a contract for the construction of the road. The contractor, Kofi Job, started working on the road to the extent of constructing the drainage system, but suddenly left site, has never returned. Now, silt has filled up many portions of the drainage system, impeding free flow of water whenever it rains. Salamat is the for the Boadang electoral area, which hosts greater part of the Wenchi Ofuman Road.
In 2014, almost all the roads that you've seen were awarded to contractors, and we were looking forward for the project to commence. And then, unfortunately, there was change of government. At least we were expecting, say, government is a continuous process, so we're expecting the current administration to continue from where they took it from. Unfortunately, they've neglected that, especially Boadang electoral area. Look at the Ofuman Road. It's about a few kilometer roads here. We expect by now for the past 6 years, and since the road is people will be plying the road and other things. As for me as an assemblywoman, I think I'm doing my best by setting out our issues, our problems, our underdeveloped areas in the community. It's left for the government to take to do his part. And if you go to the assembly, you realize that I've been trying. It's just that it's not working. So I'm pleading with the government. At least this of my they should do it so that people from Tamale, from Techumai can come here and then do business with us. So that at the assembly too will get something and then continue the small little development that we are supposed to do. Thank you.
For now, residents along the Wenchi-Ufuman Road are just hoping the year of road strain will someday locate them. For Joy News, Nesta Kafui Ajuma reporting from the Bono regional town of Wenchi.
And thanks for staying with us here on The Pulse. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back. The University Students Association of Ghana has described as harsh a decision by the management of the KNUST to abolish the JCR system. The school took the measure after a clash between students of the university and unity halls of residents. They also say the students involved should be handed over to the police instead of being suspended. There's more in the following report.
USAG is kicking against the decision of the Governing Council of Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to abolish student governance in halls of residence within the university. This decision followed violent clashes on the KNUST campus between residents of Unity and university halls, which led to injuries and damage to property. Management announced a raft of decisions, including suspending student activities and cancelling JCR governance systems in the university. At a news conference Monday, the University Students Association of Ghana, USAG, has also backed calls of its mother union, NUG's KNUST management, to reverse the decision. USAG has described the decision as harsh and one that will not yield any result. Christian Anderson Intifo is president of the association.
Unfortunately, however, in the course of our engagement, the University Council of KNUST, at their meeting held on Friday, 26 August 2022, based on the report from the fact-finding committee referred to the council by the executive committee of the university, recommended the complete abolishment of the JCR system of leadership in all the traditional halls of residence in KNUST, alongside some other recommendations on the matter. The latter recommendations of which we find to be very auspicious. To begin with, the decision to abolish the JCR system is a decision that we strongly believe is too harsh and will not yield the expected results for which it is being implemented.
USAG is also calling for an immediate review of the latest decisions by the Governing Council.
All stakeholders, including religious and pressure groups on campus, must begin to draw their roadmap towards reorienting their members who involve themselves in these retrogressive actions on campus. We anticipate the university will consider alternatives which will inure to the benefit of all members of the university community. Again, all structures that have failed to deliver on their mandates in curbing these occurrences must develop new roadmaps towards addressing the issue. The JCR alone cannot curb this problem.
This becomes the second national student institution taking a stand against the decisions of the KNUST University Council. Francisca Adi's report for JoyNews.
And here in the studio, that's all we have for you on The Pulse here on the JoyNews channel. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Blessed Sogah. We'll see you tomorrow.